Welcome back, guys, to the Great Ace Attorney Adventures. The last episode, Ryunosuke stepped into the Old Bailey courtroom to defend Magnus McGilded, finding an intimidating space awaiting filled with judge, jury, and the prosecutor renowned as the Reaper, Balok von Zeeks, as the trial began. With our first testimony underway and the omnibus crime scene itself having been brought to court and submitted as evidence, we started poking around before pressing the statements given only to find two jurors casting their fiery lot into the flaming scale representing guilty before we'd even gotten anywhere. Now with that added pressure, we continue to press. That's right, he stabbed him. I screamed I did. Couldn't help it. Hold it! He stabbed him, you say? And you were sitting up on the roof deck, were you? Yes, that's right, sir. I was up on the roof seats. I remember seeing the little gent sitting next to the fellow that was stabbed. I've been thinking about a new hat design, you see, so I was just gazing absentmindedly around. Then I happened to look down through the skylight. Doesn't seem like anyone's reacted, I guess. It was sticking right out from his belly. That huge, great knife. A grim sight indeed. That didn't help me at all. The jury looked like they're even more convinced my client did it than they were before. That appears to have made everyone even more dubious that Mr. McGilded is telling the truth. If only we had some evidence to counter their suspicions. Mr. First. Oh, yes, sir? Is this the knife you saw? Oh, good grief. Yes, that's it. The very one, sir. Is that? Yes, counsel. This is the blade that was driven into the victim's belly like a stake through the heart. And that is a blade of considerable size, counsel. It is. And furthermore, the scabbard is emblazoned prominently with a certain initial. The letter M, which seems oddly familiar. Please, no. M, for Magnus perhaps, or McGilded possibly. Take your pick. It seems this particular big name in London made a magnificent mistake. Objection! But there are M's everywhere. Like, yes, like in Mason.
Objection!
This blade is far too extravagant for a poor brickmaker to have owned. No, this weapon of murder almost certainly belongs to the accused. Not conclusive, but certainly compelling, counsel. The murder weapon has been entered into the court record. A largish knife that was found lodged in the victim's abdomen. Its quality and fancy ornamentation suggest it must be quite valuable. Can I examine it? My lord, if you'll forgive the interruption.
Juror number 2. Go on.
Mr. McGilded is a pillar of society and a gentleman, and a gentleman's word should be sacrosanct. However, those of us in service know we must accept hard truths. Wait, what are you about to do? Dispose of the rubbish. No! I don't wish to cause offense, but I do like to eradicate all traces of filth and grime. I have painstakingly typed every word uttered here today and cross-referenced all the facts. As such, I am now in a position to draw the only logical conclusion. Does that mean we're done? Not again. That's 4 out of 6 jury members who propose a guilty verdict. I'm glad it has to be unanimous, maybe. There are only 2 left. We've had it. Every time I press these witnesses for more information, I just make the situation worse. Nevertheless, what we need more than anything at the moment is more information. We're still very much in the dark. I suppose I'll just have to keep pressing the witnesses, knowing that more sparks may well fly. We mustn't give up hope that we'll uncover something that will give us the way to fight back. But... alright, I'll keep trying. I can't give up. I just need to keep calm and listen to the witnesses' statements again. Now, you might be wondering why I was so thinking like, oh, we might have lost because it's 4, of course. But the scales indicate balance, and therefore it can't be balanced if it's 4-2. So I thought maybe at 4 that would be guilt rather than a unanimous verdict. But it seems we're a bit enlightened here, and unanimous is what it needs to be, which is interesting. So we're going to see those scales probably move quite a lot, if I had to say. As soon as I heard the screamer stop my bus, and then I saw it too. Hold it! What exactly did you see? Oh, well, sir, that would be the passenger, sir. Yeah, collapsed on the floor he was. And by the passenger, obviously, you were referring to the victim, Mr. Mason, the brickmaker. And then the other passenger, the knife in his hand, like this. By the other passenger, obviously, you are referring to the accused, Mr. Magnus McGilded. And then he plunged it down like this, stabbing the other passenger in the belly. What? Well, his grip would have been weird being seated like he was. My lord, I wish to speak. No, shush! Yes, juror number 5. Do I take it that you too? As the master of the London Guild of Coachmen, the idea of a murder being committed in one of the city's carriages is utterly abhorrent to me. It wouldn't be right to make a decision before hearing all the facts, though, I said to myself. But I've heard enough now. The horse has bolted, as they say. No, please, just keep it over mine a little long. Gee up now, Silverblaze. The finish is in sight. Right. Now I have to hope she's hard of hearing or something. Beppo is a long-standing member of the guild, and I trust what the man says. Thank you, sir. You're too kind, sir. This is too unkind, sir. Which now means that 5 jurors agree to condemn this man. Madam Juror number 6.
Yes, dear. What can I do for you?
You have heard the testimonies of the witnesses in the stand.
Oh, yes, I certainly have. Still got my hearing, you know.
Damn it! Then pray tell, why are you yet to pronounce your leaning?
Well, dear, the thing is, I'm a creature of habit, me. I always go to the park at around this time of day and sit on a nice bench and get on with my knitting. There's a lovely little park just near where I live. McGilded Park, it's called. The gentleman donated it to the city, you know, to put a smile on Londoners' faces, he said. I can't imagine such a fine young gentleman would have it in him to take another man's life.
He's always doing wonderful things for the city. That's right, a man like that wouldn't stab someone, surely. Mother, may we go to the McGilded Public Library later and borrow some more books? How many Londoners live with their heads in the cloud? Do people not know? What kind of man Magnus McGilded really is? What kind of a man he is? The philanthropist Magnus McGilded has enough wealth to purchase the entire city he claims to value so highly. But where did all that wealth come from? Your client is a Shylock, sir, and one with the very darkest of souls. What?
Stone the crows?
McGilded lends money at extortionate rates of interest so his victims have no hope of repaying him. When they default, he takes possession of everything they own. He is a vulture that preys on the weak.
I've never heard any mention of that before.
Your faculties haven't deserted you, I'm sure, madame. So has this thought not crossed your mind? Would a man wealthy enough to buy London in its entirety not have a carriage of his own? What possible reason could this man have had to make use of a public omnibus service? You're not saying that the victim, a poor brickmaker, had next to nothing to his name save considerable financial liability. It will come as no surprise that his creditor was the accused, Magnus McGilded. But let it also be known that the very day Mr. Mason was killed was the final repayment date for his debts.
Good gracious!
The brickmaker was destitute. He had lost his house. He had not a shilling with which to repay his debts. And in the end, this pitiful soul had the very last thing he owned taken from him, his life. By the merciless philanthropist pretender, Magnus McGilded. I don't believe it! If I might add something briefly, Mr. Susato, you claim that the victim had been lent money by Mr. McGilded, but where's the evidence to support your claim? Drinking on the job? Pray, forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice in a court of law.
Aha! There it is! Lord Van Zeke's hallowed chalice.
How can this be considered acceptable? But I find myself in an unexpectedly good humor. I had heard ladies from the Far East could show great courage, but I didn't expect to experience it myself. Ah! As judicial assistant to the defense, I am simply doing my job. What a pity that your display of courage is in vain. This is the debtor's ledger, which details all monies loaned by the accused. You will find the victim's name clearly recorded inside. Oh. Allow me to present this ledger as evidence. And pray forgive the discourtesy of raising my chalice in a toast to the enigmatic East at the same time.
A marvelous toast, Counsel. I will gladly accept this new evidence.
The debtor's ledger has been entered into the court record. A catalogue of people who had borrowed money from the defendant at a high rate of interest. It includes the victim who owed 20 guineas.
Ah, yes, 20 guineas. The victim owed a considerable sum.
And the accused made quite certain he had ample recompense. Well, it would seem I've had the wool pulled over my eyes. Regrettably, madame, that is the modus operandi of the accused. And it's such a pretty little park, too. What a scoundrel. Ah! Still. Maybe it's all for the best. Wait a minute. Let's think about this a little more before. I don't stand for nonsense. That was it. The last juror's decision. I only just now have considered not pressing. Why did I press when everything was going badly? According to this encyclopedia of British law, when all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. That's what it says here. The final verdict. It's over then. Oh! There's a footnote, though. A footnote. However, the defense...
All 6 members of the jury are now in agreement in this case.
Allow me to convey my respect for your swift and righteous decision.
According to the laws of this country, I will now conclude the trial by delivering my final verdict. I trust there are no objections.
Miss Susato, just tell me one thing. Oh, yes? You were in the middle of saying something before. The footnote in your Encyclopedia of British Law. However, the defense... What did it say next? Oh, yes, of course. One moment. When all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. Then the footnote says, however, the defense has the right to demand a summation examination of the jurors at this point. Summation examination?
Objection!
A summation examination? From which century has that tome you have there been resurrected? Ah!
Judging from the binding, I would say that book is at least 50 years old. Any modern text on British law wouldn't even give such an antiquated procedure a mention. It's a relic, long forgotten, and certainly no longer practiced. So you're out of luck.
Oh. What even is it, Miss Susato? This so-called Summation Examination. Oh, one moment, and I'll read about it.
You would demand the right to a procedure before you even understand what it entails. Typical Nipponese.
Alright, Mr. Naruhodo, I think I understand. It seems that under this procedure, we would be able to appeal to the members of the jury.
To do what exactly?
Appeal to them to change their leaning and reverse their decisions, and it says here that if successful, the proceedings of the trial must be resumed.
Make them reverse their decisions? Yes, in times gone by, barristers would use a summation examination to attempt to influence the jury's decision. But that procedure became something of a formality with no practical benefit, really. So it rather fell out of use.
I wonder why.
Because it was devoid of purpose. Changing just one member of the jury's mind would be hard enough, let alone several. No self-respecting defense barrister would even assert his right to try in this day and age.
Still, I don't see any mention of the procedure actually being formally revoked.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that although it may be antiquated and largely forgotten, it isn't yet extinct. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? A summation examination, our last possible option. Do we assert our right to carry it out or admit defeat? Well, I need to assert our right indeed. Defense wishes to assert its right to a summation examination, my lord.
Objection!
London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. We have a duty to the world to exemplify the very highest standards of judicial procedure. Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should remain buried.
Objection!
But if it's our right, it's our right. I believe it could prove vital in this trial.
A defense's petition is perfectly valid. The court will proceed with a summation examination. This is madness. Foreman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready? Well, I'm not, There was no mention of this in the letter I received, you see, so... All members of the jury will be asked to explain on what ground they have reached their decision. On what grounds? You must all justify your decision and explain why you believe the defendant to be guilty. Well, my lords, you're rather putting us on the spot.
This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before.
I don't really hold with all this justifying lark.
That seems to have thrown the jurors off. It seems none of them have experienced this before. Alright then. The summation examination. A defense procedure no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Well, just maybe. It might be the opportunity we've been looking for. To turn this trial around.
So be it then. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant Magnus McGilded guilty of this most serious crime.
Things have gotten interesting, haven't they?
Judicial findings. The jurors' contentions. There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it had to have been him.
I trust the driver. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers, with fares totaling 20 pence. Didn't mention the fares? He's like the chap next to him, just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen. I have simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion.
You can trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years.
But where? What?
Oh, wait, what? I was just sorry. I was flabbergasted. Like, this is irrelevant. Why are you talking about your fares? And then wait a second. 4 fares at 20. 4 fares at 4 pence for years. That's 16. What's going on here?
The scoundrel stabbing that poor man on the floor. It beggars belief.
Also, no one got stabbed on the floor. They believe things that are entirely wrong. I'm starting to wish I hadn't pushed for this now.
Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments, though, do they?
I think barely any of them do. Well, let's see what we can do. We need to get these 6 people to change their minds. I'll have to throw everything I can at them. Use some very persuasive language.
Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo.
According to my book, that's not quite how it works.
Oh? I thought I was going to have to thaw their icy minds with some heartwarming rhetoric about the defendant.
Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant is guilty, they're likely to heed anything the defense says.
But then...
They've reached their conclusions by their own reasoning, you see. Your pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they may become.
God, this sounds too real. Then what on earth am I supposed to do?
Oh dear, I'm just citing what I've read about British law, Mr. Naruhodo.
Right, I'm sorry. Do you have any idea how to make this work then?
Well, from what I can understand, the key to this procedure is using the jurors' own words to make your arguments.
What do you mean?
Well, the 6 members of the jury are randomly selected members of the public. They may appear to present a united front, but the truth is, they are complete strangers who just happen to find themselves here in the courtroom together.
And that's the way to break them down, you mean?
Yes, exactly. We must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says, and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can then contrast the statements and pit the corresponding jurors against each other.
What, divide and conquer? This doesn't seem very, on point.
I see. So it's contradictions in what 2 or more jurors say that we're looking for. In a way, then, this is similar to a regular cross-examination. Oh, yes, I suppose you're right.
Sure.
Find contradictions in their statements and pit the jurors against one another to break them down.
All right, I might be able to pull this off.
No, that's not right.
I have to pull this off. And can we start proceedings, counsel? I would ask you to take the stand for this. I'm expecting a clear and concise rebuttal.
Yes, my lord.
The jury examination. The defense's rebuttal. There was no one else aside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him. So we can press these. So it's triangle to pit.
Hold it!
Certainly. The testimonies we've heard suggest the victim and Mr. McGilded were alone inside the carriage. Precisely my point.
But could there be some other explanation? Something we haven't considered yet?
Such as?
Well, perhaps that's something we could all work out together now?
Now listen here, maybe you don't know how things work around here because you're from foreign climes, but we're here to form our opinions as individuals, and I have.
Oh dear, he doesn't appear to be in the mood to consider an alternative point of view, does he?
No, I'm gonna have to pit the jurors against one another, like Susato-san said. Finding contradictions in these 6 people's assertions is the only way I'm gonna succeed.
So there doesn't seem to be any reason to press at all?
I will press again here, but essentially it's this statement and this statement that I think we want to be pitting.
Let's press first.
Hold it!
But does his ability to recall his takings that night really tell us how trustworthy the man is? I manage all his lordship's cash affairs, so I'm very particular when it comes to accounts.
I see.
A single penny can mean the difference between life and death, after all. Can't it?
That's a saying in your country?
My point is, a man who minds his figures is a man you can trust. Those of us in service would swear to that, sir.
Does that bench really need any more polishing?
So if the good driver says that he saw Mr. McGill in the act, I don't doubt him. The only task left to do today is disposing of the rubbish.
Ah, now wait a minute. One of the other jurors mentioned something about money, I think.
Now would be a very good time to listen carefully to the jurors' statements again, Mr. Naruhodo. If you notice an inconsistency in what two different jurors are saying,
I should expose it by pitting them against each other. Yes, let's see if I can do just that. So let's do it. If I have to say then, is there more than one? Because stabbing. So it's kind of like a matchup game, really. She kind of matches with him in the fact that they've just decided by themselves and they don't really have much to say. Maybe they could be too. In the meantime, let's pit you against you. You trust the guild, fair price of the motor. We haven't raised prices of 4 pence for years, and the 20 pence fair.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other. They do. Explain yourself, counsel.
Me? Oh dear, what have I said?
I swear on Silver Blaze's maiden name, I haven't the first idea what you're talking about.
According to the group testimony we've heard so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus on the night in question. And according to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right, I have those precise details typed neatly here in front of me. And juror number 5 also told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence.
That it is. A fair and convenient single price. Just the way London's carriages should be operated.
But that doesn't add up at all. In fact, it leaves a glaring discrepancy in the facts.
Why, man? Why?
All passengers paying 4 pence each. If you do the multiplication... it would be 16 pence. Exactly. As I said, it doesn't add up. The figures are different. By 4 pence, in fact. Or precisely, one person's fare.
One person's fare?
Yes. In other words, on the omnibus that night, it's distinctly possible there was another passenger we've heard nothing about.
Good gracious! This can't be right. The coachmen of the guild are good, honest men, one and all. Trustworthiness is our watchword.
The figures your coachman claims most certainly do not add up. Your watchword, good sir, is a fallacy.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Guildmaster, I think you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, the news will surely spread all over London. The news that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact that he lets nefarious characters ride his omnibus.
Alright then, how do I make it so this miserable trial doesn't end, huh?
Well, according to my book here, you simply launch a ball of fire onto the innocent side of the set of scales.
Now hold your horses there, coachman. We were all in agreement. Why'd you have to go and... Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo. This is all very irritating.
Begging your pardon, sir, I'm going to do the same.
For the love of Mike, not you as well.
A penny can be the difference between a smile and a tear, after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards in financial matters.
Oh, really?
I, for one, think it's only proper that we hear from the witnesses again. Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. You did it! If we can manage to change 2 more jurors' minds, we can force the trial to continue.
2 more?
Actually, there is something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions. Then that's where you must strike next.
So I need to pit 2 more jurors against each other and show there's another contradiction in their assertions.
Exactly. You can do it.
Well, the scales of justice have shifted, but they still weigh heavy on the side of guilt. Counsel, you have the floor again. Continue with your summation examination.
I'm changing my leaning to innocent. I should like to hear what the slipshod bookkeeper has to say for himself. Interesting statement now.
What does your one say? Beppo, this trial has to continue so I can get to the bottom of this corruption. Not guilty, I say.
Right, so it's not going to be you. It is definitely going to be you. I want to know why you're so happy, stabby, holdy, knifey, and why point that at the lady? I point it away at anyone. I'd be taking offense hitting the typewriter. So, it is at this point that we have started to figure out how to deal with jurors. After everything swung to the side of guilt, we now swing it back so our trial can continue. How many times will these guys interject to send us spiraling to a summation examination in our time in Britain? We'll find out as the story continues as we leave you for this episode of the Great Ace Attorney Adventures. Join me for the next one. I'll see you guys then for more. Bye-bye.